Hi, Izzy.
Good
Cheers.
morning.
Good
Cheers.
morning.
Coffee.
Yep, coffee 1st. So, welcome to yet another episode of the Addiction Unfiltered show, where we continue to demystify addiction and just continue to have conversations about it. Because, yeah, like we kept saying, there are just so many wrong myths and just so much wrong information and confusion and you know just these were not easy conversations to have before, and we're just trying so hard to normalize it, right? So my name is Laura and I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hi, guys. My name is Isabella, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. So, today we're taking you past the addiction part. We're taking you past the rehab experience. If you've been following, please, you already know what we've been talking about. And if you haven't, please subscribe because, guys, these are very relevant conversations. We're going past that and into navigating the months after rehab, life after rehab, the first few months, or technically the survival, in recovery that comes after rehab.
Yeah.
And we're just going to talk from our own personal experiences. As always, we're not trying to say that this is a cardboard cutout copy of what it looks like or what it should be, but we want you guys to know what it can be like and what it usually ends up being like.
Yes.
Yeah.
But these are our stories, unfiltered, and just our truth, and that's just what it is. Some of you might be wondering why we keep saying, a recovering alcoholic or using the word recovery. It just means that we have gone through the whole process, like we have accepted and we understand what alcoholism is, we've understood what addiction is, and we've understood that we are addicts. We've understood why, the how, and all those things, and now we are in recovery. In recovery means there are things that we're actively doing every single day to make sure that we do not take that first sip again, right? So that's why we keep saying, recovering alcoholic, and that's what the topic is today. Just shining some light on that, sharing what it's been like for us after rehab.
Yeah. So leaving rehab can feel like you're stepping into a whole different planet. It feels like your body is not yours. It feels like the world is not what you remember. Everything just looks different. Navigating everything is like a roller coaster. Things hit you a little bit harder in the beginning, and it's expected, but it's also it's messy. It's messy to start off with, but it's also magical because as you get past the first initial mess, you get into this magic of it all, of experiencing life now in high definition, in a brighter.
I kept saying life in 3D.
Yeah,
4D.
yeah. It just becomes a beautiful experience. But yeah, the beginning is not easy because you come out of rehab and you have some hard set rules that you cannot live without. You cannot stray from.
If you want to stay in recovery.
Which is what we're trying to promote. So I hope it's best that you follow these rules. And I want Laura to start because the first one is, what is the mantra basically for recovery? Not just right after rehab, by the way. You continue. There are people who are 20 years, 30 years, 50 years in, they still live by this principle.
Yeah, and that's the PPT.
Yeah.
The people, places, and things. So one of the things that that I had to do when I left the treatment center was to just we'll start with the first P, which is the people. There's so many people that I had to say bye to. Without some of them I had to say it, others I didn't have to. It was just one of those silent goodbyes, and I think they sort of understood. But there are certain people that maybe who every time I saw it was either hanging out at a bar, or they stressed me too much or made me feel a certain way, all that anxiety that leads to that craving coming back. So basically with the PPT, it's just trying to minimize, like make sure you're not in situations where you're triggered. So yeah, the first P, like friends, there's so many friends that I had to let go of. So many, like 90%. really, right? But you know, I've never been a very big group of friends type person, so it wasn't so bad. How was it for you?
Um, it was a bit similar, except I think I had entered rehab without a big group of friends by then. So it was, I wouldn't say it was easy to come out and realize that there were people rather, sorry, that we can't and I couldn't see, that I couldn't be around, that I couldn't really hang out with anymore. And some of these people weren't even just my friends. Some of them were family. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of family functions right in
Yes.
the beginning that I couldn't go for because those were some of the people I had to stay away from. And it was like entering a vacuum. It felt very, very loud in an empty space, just realizing that you're kind of alone.
Yeah. And then you have to set all these boundaries, because there are certain people that are your biggest triggers, but you must see like a lot of close family
Yeah.
or work. In this case, work for me was one of my biggest triggers because for a very long time, to get in that brainstorming mood and get my creative juices flowing and solve problems, for a long time I did that while drinking.
Yeah.
So it had become like a ritual. So literally, I haven't told Lam this. Lam is a CEO of Travaneza, that I would literally see him and almost just see a Long Island. Can you imagine? Like I would see him and he would just make me, I would just want to
Yeah.
drink. Just because Lam always comes with many problems to solve, And this was always like, hold up. Let me first have a drink,
Yeah.
take a sip or two, and then now we can get into solving all this and what, and all that. Jawaria, the marketing manager, same thing, because I look at her and then every time I sat with Jawaria, it was we're creating campaigns and discussing this and that, and I just always had a drink in hand. So I look at her, and even when she's coming to give me the biggest, warmest hug, I'm just thinking, oh shit. Like I just need a drink when I look at her. Can you imagine? So I had to reduce that to like those meetings, like with traveling, to just once a week.
Yeah.
Sometimes even twice a month. A lot of scheduled meetings, things like that. And I would always make sure that I had those meetings at home or in a very quiet place. I found now maybe that moves us even to places,
Yeah.
right? Now I couldn't have those meetings in places where I always had a drink easily.
Yeah.
So I found this little cute cafe called Green Bean, and luckily it's very near my home. That doesn't have a bar inside. Do you know how rare that is? Actually, in around my home, it's only Enduro and that Green Bean that doesn't have alcohol.
In
Okay,
Uganda,
and
right?
Cafe Javas, but I've never liked sitting at Cafe
Yeah.
Javas. It's a whole market.
Yeah.
But yes, so you get what I mean. I had to put all these things in place. I had to be very careful about where I had my meetings and the people that I saw and what time I saw them, and I'll just be talking to myself like throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my experience, because a lot of my life was family and work.
Mm.
Friends, social, not so much. It was really family and work.
And work,
You
yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that second P, the places. I came out of rehab knowing that my biggest place that was a trigger. Chill the bus that you pass on the way to everywhere in this country.
Yes. Oh, God.
It was work. It was my workplace. My workplace was my biggest trigger because everything there was just high stress. I mean,
Yeah.
they were amazing people that I worked with. I really enjoyed my team, but still, you see them, like you're saying, you see them and you're seeing problems and you're seeing stress and you're just seeing heightened anxiety. And the way to deal with that before was get a little bit tipsy, get a little bit of liquid courage, right?
Yep, the Dutch courage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I came out of rehab. I came back. I think I landed on like a Saturday, and on Monday I went to the office. So first of all, like the whole weekend I was so stressed out, knowing I
Dreading
had to go
Monday.
back. And then I went back, and as you're saying, like getting closer to the gate, all I could think of was, oh my goodness, I need a drink.
Yeah,
I
like
need
your
a drink.
whole body just starts craving,
Yeah.
craving for a drink. When I keep telling people a human can look like a glass.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
But yes, that's what
I would
that's what
look at
felt
it,
like.
and I was looking at it, and I walked in, and I was a bit wobbly, and it wasn't because I'd been away for a while. It was because that was my biggest trigger.
Yeah.
I just walked in knowing, am I going to survive even day one day after doing 2 months? Am I going to walk back and on day one relapse?
Yeah.
So that was so scary for me, and I couldn't avoid it, but I actually had to learn as well I had to be very clear about my working hours. I had
Yeah.
to become, I was that person who was in the office at 6 a.m. and left at 9 p.m. because apparently I had no life. I didn't actually, but I thought that was the epitome of a
Don't
good
worry, you're not
employee.
alone.
I was like, I'm very diligent. Are you seeing the hours I'm
hardworking
working?
entrepreneur in my
So-
case, right?
yeah.
Business, I
Your
had to be
business is-
24/7.
Yeah, because it's yours. You have to grow it.
Please, it doesn't have to be like that. But anyway.
So and I wouldn't take my lunch breaks. I wouldn't take weekends off, public holidays. I mean, I was at work all the time if I wasn't with family, just like you. So I had to now become very clear about, hey, the contract says these hours. This is exactly how many hours
That's
I'm
the
working.
boundaries I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that helped. Of course, there were still things that came out, but that helped a lot in setting those boundaries, in starting to look at work as work, not as my actual whole life and identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it was it was tough. One of the things that I'll share still with the PPT, in this case, people. So one of my biggest triggers, of course, I've talked about work, but then was my son. Because I think I've shared in previous episodes or in one of those Unfiltered series of mine, but he struggled with work a lot. He struggled with school a lot. Still does, but it's now more manageable. But so for me, every trip to his school, like I was just always anticipating a problem. Like from the time I would get there, the office, or he's done this, or he really wants to go home, he's crying, he's this, so many things. And oh my God, my son has a way of like tugging at my heart. You know what they say about children? It's like your heart roaming around outside your body, and there's nothing you can do. Anyway, I'm better now. I can regulate my emotions better now. But then, it was hard. So I remember 2 weeks, just 2 weeks out of, was it even 2 weeks? Less than 2 weeks out of rehab, I had to go to see him. And my God. And for me, remember I shared that towards the end, just to make it very convenient, I was literally moving with mineral water, which was not mineral water. Yeah. And I had I'd never really been a clear liquid type of girl, but I had to, because I had to get something that looked like water, no? Anyway, so literally, I remember that time I found myself stopping at a petrol station because I used to fly in. He was in Nairobi, and I used to fly in and stop at a gas station to, something, supplies. I'm getting him snacks to go because his school was kind of out of town, about 2 hours. And so I found myself just, reaching for that bottle of water. And like, imagine my body was just acting. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh shit. Like I had to just stop myself and call my sponsor. I don't know if we've talked about a sponsor on this show. Maybe we'll explain. Yeah. I don't think we have.
Yeah, we haven't.
A sponsor is that person that helps you navigate this recovery, like someone who's been in it longer. Yeah. Yes. And I literally had to call him. Like it was like my whole body, like the cravings. Actually, that I don't think my cravings have ever been that strong. And indeed, when I reached the school, disaster. It was one problem after the other, and for the first time in forever, I was navigating it sober. It was the hardest thing. That meant I was feeling everything. Remember, usually by the time I would get there, I would always anticipate this, right? And so I would make sure I've numbed myself 100%. Yeah. So they're talking to me, telling me all this. I'm like, yeah, sure. So what would you like me to do? So we're in this together. We're both parents. And I would just be dry, what we call bold and everything. This time I'm feeling everything. I remember I even cried in that office. I went and called my mom in the bathrooms crying. And I think she even must have gotten really worried. Actually, she did, because I never used to do that before, because I would just be on a whole other level, right? But yeah, so that's what was hard. But I remember I got through that, and I remember my sponsor telling me that evening that, see, you did it. Yes, you felt everything. Yes, it was hard, and now you're going to learn to actually sit with those hard feelings, because not being able to sit with those feelings is what would always drive me to the drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, and at least that day I realized I sat through it. Yes, it was hard, but the day ended. Like everything does come to an end. So yeah, that's just one of those things. Now, like I was saying, I can't avoid my son. I can't avoid work. I can't avoid, and for me that was the hardest part. Those were my triggers. The whole thing of friends, not really, right? And that's easier to sort out.
Yeah.
And luckily, my closest friends, the ones who I had said avoiding because as I was getting worse, because I didn't want to be accountable to them, are actually really, really lovely ladies.
Yeah.
I never actually met those ones in a bar. Those are the friends that I would go visit at home or would meet in a nice, cute cafe or, So for those, thank God they didn't dump me. Like, they have still remained my friends. So I didn't have to suffer in that regard.
Yeah.
And in this country, first of all, we use the word friends a bit too loosely.
Yes.
Because those friends that you just meet in bars, like the people that I actually had to make sure that I didn't see again, those were not really friends.
They were your drinking buddies.
They are drinking buddies, acquaintances, or just friends based on, that friendship based on very shady foundation, you know. So, yeah. That was a lot of my experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard. I can't imagine, because you definitely, your son's your son,
Yeah.
Yeah, but well done. I love it. The way you just said the day came to an end. Like everything does.
Yeah, like every time it just continues. Before you know it, it's 10. First of all, because of all the stress, you're even now really sleepy, and then you black out. But before that, I remember there was this bar next to the Airbnb where I always stayed in Nairobi that I would go to, right? And this time I just slept, but I had to keep talking to my sponsor.
Yeah.
I had to read. I had to really maintain that routine, I think, which takes us even to, another topic. But yeah, so that day did come to an end. And I remember waking up and going like, my God, I actually did all that without drinking. And by the way, that was the worst parent-teacher meeting. Like, that was the hardest of them all.
Yeah.
And it's like God had kept that one to test me. Like, let's see if she can manage this. Like, because after that, it's just not been as bad since. Like, that was the hardest.
Yeah, to show you that you can do hard things.
Yes. And now my brain learned that. My mind learned that I could do hard things. I could do this and not die. And that was the best thing ever. So yeah.
And the last one in the PPT is things. So we've kind of incorporated things into this, into what we've shared.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the things that you avoid, the things that you're supposed to stay away from that also would lead you to drinking. So things like, for me, that was, I didn't attend one big wedding right after. So we usually have two big ceremonies in Uganda. For anybody who has joined us from an international audience, we have a giveaway ceremony, and then we have the white gown wedding or church wedding. Now the giveaway ceremony I avoided for one of my cousins because it was 1 week after I came back. And for me, a wedding was always a big trigger for me, because I can't handle big crowds anyway. I'm an ambivert or an extroverted introvert, but technically I have social anxiety that doesn't come across, but I do. So for big family functions, especially weddings and weddings of younger cousins, my friends and family, can we stop telling the older cousins when they're going for younger cousins' weddings to feel bad? Because that set me off, like knowing that every single person I'm going to encounter is going to say, can you imagine? Where is yours? She's so much younger. Oh,
like, you better be next.
You better be next. And
I think I've gone way past the stage. I think I'm even in the older... like, actually, this is very offensive. How come no one asks me that anymore? People have just given up. That's so terrible, guys.
So anyway. Okay, don't make us feel bad, but also don't give up on the people.
Right.
But anyway, so I avoided it because I knew that would be a big trigger for me, seeing all those people again, being in that big of an event. I went for her wedding because it was smaller, and I'm glad I did. So those are that's the cardinal rule. Right after they give you the PPT, and you need to keep remembering it. And the sponsor, as Laura has mentioned, is a big part of sticking to your PPT.
There are many events I also just, up to now, there are many events I don't go to.
Yeah.
And even when I do, I'll make sure I'm in and out of there. Like, I'll do exactly what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And not really hang around much for the socializing part.
Yeah.
But I was always like that anyway. Events for me, I don't even know. By the way, I think that was my biggest trigger. I think I've said everything was a big trigger. But events, oh my God, I think I've shared previously how I could not walk into an event without having a drink. Like, I needed that Dutch courage.
Yeah.
I really did. And then somehow, because I don't attend too many events, and I think people in the industry have been used to that now, it always starts with, will you be attending this? Will you be able to? Will you be around? Anyway, because I don't attend too many, when I do,
It's like
the socializing and the, oh my God, how have you been is on, it's always very overwhelming, you know? And I've always been the person who wished they could walk in with like a mask. Like, I'm always like, can they see me? I hope they can't see me. She's walking towards me. I hope she can't see me. You know? It's better now because I've done a lot of work on myself, but it's still hard. So I only go for events that I have to.
Yeah.
That I have to go for.
Yeah.
But I'm also very good at building very good teams around me. So usually there's always someone else that can go in my place. It doesn't have to be me, right?
Yeah.
But
But she's right, because that's sort of, sorry for almost interrupting, but there's an event I met Laura at last year, a tourism event, and literally it must have been, it explains now why you couldn't go 3 steps without someone stopping you, because I watched you walk in.
Right?
I was watching you from quite a distance, and I just remember thinking, when will I say hi? Because I too hadn't seen you in a long time, and I was waiting to say hi. But every 3 steps, someone was.
Guys, we need to talk about that event. That was actually my first work event last year.
Yeah.
Oh, what a disaster. When I tell you, at some point, everyone indeed started looking like a drink because I was so triggered. But I had to, so what I did, I don't know, do you remember where I sat?
Yeah.
Right at the front.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, I'm going to be right in front. I'm not going to look at, I'm just going to pay attention.
Yeah.
Make sure that whoever, at least they saw that I came, because those ones insisted it had to be me because they know that I'm always, making sure someone else goes. Yeah. But it was so hard. It was so hard. Yeah. Anyway, so many things are just hard. It's just that now I'm getting better at doing the hard things and not having to escape from them. Yeah. And that's what the difference is, that it's just so much better now.
Yeah. So from what we've shared, the PPT, it leads you to two main things in your early recovery that are not easy, but I think are necessary. One, we've talked about like letting go of people, especially, and changing your entire life becomes it's taxing on your emotions. You enter a bit of a roller coaster. You're up and down more often than you want to be, and you're down a lot more than you're up in the beginning, and that can be hard. So I remember when I first started the recovery journey out of rehab, I was feeling all these emotions, but I thought, I'll remember all the coping mechanisms they taught us. I'll employ them. They make you do this exercise, by the way, in rehab, where they ask you what you'll do when something happens, when you're triggered, what will you do?
And it really helped. And I did that a lot.
Yeah, and it really helped. But then there were times when none of it would help.
Yes.
So I remember 3 occasions in that first month of February of March when I just come back, having to run out of the office and call my therapist, crying. I mean, bawling my eyes out, like full work mode, but just it's gotten too much. I can't handle it. None of the coping things are working, and I'd have to call her because I was the emotional roller coaster of early recovery is. They try to prepare you for it, but when you're in your little bubble in rehab, you're like, I can handle this. You've taught me everything, and then it happens, and you almost can't. You learn to though. You learn that you can handle it, and of course, same conversations I was having should say just take it one step at a time. Just get through it. If you can just get through it, you will see that you can do it. So eventually, I learned that. But yeah, in the beginning, that whiplash of just thinking that, I've done so much work. I went to rehab. I'm working on myself. I know what to do. Why can't I handle this?
I know. I used to get so disappointed in myself. Like, why is it this hard? I've done all the work, And I remember in rehab, they'll be like, one step at a time, just for today. There's a whole just for today.
Yeah.
And I've always been one of those, I can do this, I'd be like, just for today. Until sometimes I'd break it down to just make it to the next hour. And I'd be like, sure, I'm not that weak. Hey, that event you talked about, I was on the hourly thing.
Yeah.
Of Laura, you can make it. Just make it to 4 p.m. Then 5 p.m. And then 6 p.m. Like, you can do this. Like, I was just living hour by hour, And it helped, but it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard. It still is. It's just not as hard.
Yeah.
But... yeah,
but in those first months navigating it, I think the two things that we're saying is, three things so far, is one, follow what they're telling you from rehab, the PPT. Two, sponsor and therapy, where those are things that keep you on the straight and narrow in the beginning, because in those first months, everything and everyone looks like a glass.
I just actually need to add, right? We need to keep coming back to this. The reason that we're doing this is, yes, to demystify addiction, for people to understand what it is, how we feel. But I think even more important, for the loved ones of addicts to really understand what they're going through. So, for example, if you're listening to us and your daughter, your sister, your wife, your husband, whatever it is maybe in recovery, or they've just come out of rehab, or, like we mentioned, you don't even have to, some people don't go to rehab, they'll just go for counseling, like it will happen, to understand what they're going through. So when they tell you they can't do something, they can't go to a certain place, because that was so hard with the family up to now. Like, I had to put that rule, and I work with my family on the hotel side, for them to understand that I can't take work calls after 7, because for me, those calls, some of them would be so triggering, like just rise my anxiety. And before I know it, even as the call is going on, I'm putting on my shoes, I'm getting in the car and going to sit at my kafunda, So I had to make sure, like, I had to put all these boundaries in place, but they just wouldn't understand. It's just 5 minutes. It's just 10 minutes. Why can't you take our calls? Oh my God. Why can't you answer the phone? There are times I've had to go for a meeting, for an AA meeting, and maybe I have family around, and they're like, can't you just miss for today? And for them, they don't understand what that means if I just get off that path. So sometimes, we're doing all this so that people, that's part of demystifying it. So people understand it better, understand how hard it is, and understand, like, support is the most important thing. If I didn't have the support of my sponsor, for example, like, or people like you, or, family, when they eventually started to understand it better, it would have been, I believe that's one of the reasons why people relapse even more. So that's why we're sharing these stories, right? Not that we just want to talk on camera, but we just hope that this makes it a little easier. For families and for addicts themselves to know they're not alone, that it's okay when someone starts to look like a glass, just know exactly what to do, have somebody you can call, and things like that. So that's why we're sharing. I just wanted to add
it's necessary, and we will do a bigger segment on support, because this part that we're talking about now, the support system, as Laura has mentioned, it plays the biggest part. The biggest part. Because you're navigating all the things that we've talked about. You're going through this emotional roller coaster. You're going through changing so many things about yourself and about your life, and understanding things afresh, or even from completely new perspective. And you're struggling still. So your support system plays a big part. And I remember as we're talking about the support system, I remember entering the next one, which for me was the boredom dilemma, where
loneliness.
Where you can't see the people you used to see, go to the places you used to go to, or do the things you used to do. So now you find yourself half the time, if not 90% of the time, by yourself, alone at home. if you're not at a meeting, you're at home. If you're not at whatever semblance of work you're doing, you're at home. Or if you don't have any of that, you're just doing meetings at home.
Yeah.
And no social, you're trying not to socialize because you're not sure what's going to trigger you in any social setting. So then you become bored. And boredom is a dangerous place for an addict.
Yeah.
And yet it happens.
Yep, it really does. But I think what I found is that Rehab will teach you how to be bored and how to just spend a lot of time by yourself and get used to it. Get used to sitting there with your thoughts. It's different when you're in the outside world, though.
Yeah.
I found that in the beginning it was quite lonely. I slowly transitioned to actually enjoying that solitude, right? Because then I learned to sit with my thoughts. Remember, we mentioned in previous episodes, we continued with therapy. I continued with therapy, so it helped. But then I slowly also learned to fill that time with certain activities, things I never used to do before. Because remember, this was now a new me, literally. And I shared a lot about that. And quite a number of videos that I did before. I started doing yoga. I started working out more. I joined a run group, things I never thought I would ever do me. And then through those, you start to meet people, like different people, but at least you get a bit of your social fix from that. It wasn't easy, and just doing things alone, being okay sitting in a cafe, by myself. Or just reading. I really went into this reading thing, like really getting lost in the pages. So eventually, I now actually will even rush home, like just to be by myself and look forward to it. But before, it was very lonely. It was very daunting because it kept feeling like, shit, is this what my life is like now? Yeah. Is this how I'm going to be forever? Yeah. Yeah. But how was it for you?
So I've always enjoyed my alone time, as I said earlier, introvert and extroverted introvert. But, I always felt the pressure to be social, right? And that if I'm not being social, I'm not normal. So of course, that for me, that was now where my dilemma came in, because I was enjoying being by myself, but then I was thinking, oh no, I'm missing out on what normal life is, because what am I doing? I'm just at home. And then I realized, you know what, maybe. So again, talking to my therapist, she encouraged me to try doing things alone. Because I enjoy my own company. Therefore, maybe instead of just being at home and having my negative thoughts start coming out as you're not normal, you're missing out on life.
Like life's passing you by.
Look at you being sober for what? You're so boring now. Try and go do things by yourself so that you're out of the house and you're not actually feeling the boredom. So I started doing that. I started going to movies by myself. I used to do that in uni. I started again. I started looking for little, like, small cafes, and I would sit there with my book. I started reading again, just like you. I'd given up reading for so long, and I used to enjoy it. So I started going with my book everywhere. I became that person with a book in my bag.
Me too.
And then I became that person who sent my cousin in the UK and said, please, I just need you to bring me a Kindle. When you're coming in the summer, and that's it. So then I had a Kindle, which I read the hard books more than the Kindle, so I don't even know why I did that. But the point
it's nice
is,
to have options. So it's fine.
Yeah, but the thing is, I started rewriting what not being bored looked like, what being out and doing activities and being social to an extent looked like for me. Eventually, I started doing things with people as well. I found. Shall I call it my tribe? And then I stopped doing all these things by myself.
Like how you found me.
And then I found Laura. And now we're doing this thing where she makes me talk in front of cameras, something that is daunting every single time, but I love it. So that's how I navigated that. But I remember in the beginning sitting there and thinking, does this mean I'm going to become the most boring person that ever lived because I decided to get sober?
And by those thoughts are so horrible, because some people go like, you know what, to hell with this life. It's not worth it. And they just go back to drinking. Because with drinking comes a lot of you sitting with people and you're having conversations and you're having... By the way, for many Ugandans, when you take away the drinking, you've literally taken away their social life. Exactly. That's it. Yeah. That's when I remember I realized that what was it that I used to do away from...
Did I ever?
No, like there was nothing else. And that's so terrible. You're like, what quality of life was I living? But anyway, Yeah,
Gets
so it
better.
was daunting before, in the
Yeah.
beginning. But now I would not go back to that life at all. I'm so happy with how things are now. Yes, it still gets lonely, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
The new identity,
Yeah.
which is the next one. The new identity, creating your new identity.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a crisis, by the way, in the beginning. So it's called the new identity crisis for a reason.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, we've basically just shared with you how we had to reinvent ourselves, our lives, our routines, our schedules, our boundaries, our relationships, everything. That's not easy.
It's not easy to rebuild a life. Yeah.
And to show up as this different person. I think I shared in an episode before where I started getting questions from people at work about, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, so many times I would get this
They were
question
not
about,
used to you being like that.
they were
yeah.
not used to me being quieter. They were not used to me not being there all the time. They were not used to me walking away from functions when it was time for me to leave. They were not used to me not being the life of the office.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people would call me when I'm on sick leave and say, "Oh, you need to come back because the office is quiet." Now, I'd be in the office for days and people wouldn't even know. So I'd get a phone call from a colleague and they would say, why aren't you coming to work? And I'm like, what do you mean? I've been coming to work every single day. But I had changed that because I no longer needed that. I no longer needed the mask of the happiness and the life of the party in order for me to pretend to be okay.
Yeah.
Now I was okay on the inside, or I was working on it, still am. So the outside got quiet. But nobody understood that. My family didn't understand the boundaries, like you're saying. You know, I moved back in with my mom. I thank her for allowing me to do that, but also allowing me to create it the way I needed, to redefine that relationship, because we'd had a very, very bad relationship before that, especially living together. It's great now. But I would have to sit with her and explain to her when I can't either be at home if she has to have too many visitors, or I can't have them know I'm there because I've come from the office and I can't. I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, and I'm crumbling, and I just need space. I need alone time to sit and process the feelings and the emotions. And I mean, our parents come from a generation where, what do you mean they're visitors at home and you're not going to greet, let alone sit and entertain them?
Yeah.
But she learned that slowly, and she allowed me to be like that. And so I had to rebuild all these relationships. My sister, who's my best friend, would call me and say, let's go to this event and let's go out for this dinner and let's meet for this. And I'd say no.
And she'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah,
you said
like,
no?
my social battery for the week is exhausted, even for you.
I know, you start sounding like a really mean person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would have to do those things, and it became very hard. Even for some friends, it'd be like, let's meet up, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't. I need the weekend to decompress. And it becomes weird because nobody's used to you like that. The world isn't used to receiving you that way. And yet they adjust very quickly. If you set your boundaries,
yeah, they do.
People will actually respect them.
I'm really close to my mom. Like my mom and I don't know. She never knew where she stopped and I started. Like, it was like one continuous being. And I mean, to the extent that, wake up, she comes right into my bed when they're in Kampala. She shares everything that she thinks about with me. She cannot go for a function without sending me a video, even if we're not together. Like, so many of those things, right? And I had to create all these boundaries because they were so used to reaching me anytime. Like, my schedule never mattered, And so I remember sometime last year her sending me a message and saying she's so sad because she feels like we're not as close anymore and she's very lonely. And it was so sad because it was quite an adjustment for her. Mm. But now we've found a way to navigate that. Like, it's different, but it's still really close. Just because it's come from a place of understanding. She now understands it better. But I found that I had to have a lot of these conversations with her. I had to share a lot of what I was going through in therapy with her, tell her this new Laura. Yeah. So even now when she comes, she's like, so what are we doing? And then she'll even try some of the things with me. It's been so cute how she's adjusted to that. And it's helped because she understood. And I think that's also why I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know for some people it's not easy for them to talk to their parents the way, the way I can. I'm very close to mine. I can really just have any conversation. But some people can't. Or some people feel like they've messed up so bad that they don't have that relationship anymore, where they won't be hard like that. So maybe there's some mother out there listening to us. And that's thinking, let me give this child some grace. Let me give them some space. Let me give them space and time to form, to get used to their new environment, their new life, and just support instead of criticize, or just be more positive instead of negative, and either continuously reminding them of their past, yet they're trying so hard to move from that. Things like that,
and that especially, because I know a few people who, that last part that you said, where that the person doesn't feel like they can actually tell their people what they need, because they've messed up so badly that they feel guilty. They feel guilty, and they feel like, I just need to keep them happy. They've supported me this far in this last stretch, so now I just have to do what I need to, what they want. And to that person as well, that's a slippery slope back to relapse. And to the people who are their support, same slippery slope back to relapse.
Like, you have to put yourself first, because if you don't, you will end up back to that place. You will relapse. You'll end up back in rehab or back in active addiction. And then either way, you're still hurting those same people that you're trying not to hurt anymore, So as mean and as terrible as it feels, it's just something that we have to do in recovery. We have to put ourselves first. And it does feel cold, but the world will adjust.
Yeah, it does. For me, my as I've said, my relationship with my mom, who's my primary parent, was never that, that open. But I really appreciate the therapist and director, he's both, of where I went, called Obi, who sat with me in a family session, and literally, so he's African, he's African by descent, first generation Brit, and I remember him telling my mom, like, I'm African, I understand, but you're going to have to face some hard truths. And what you've just said of, if you do not let her do what she needs to do, create this new identity and really put the hard me first things in place, we'll be here again in not so long. And it was hard for her to hear, but and I was so scared because I couldn't say it, so I had to ask him to say it, but it helped. So it's not easy, but if you allow that to happen, if you allow those first few months of adjustment, of not really understanding what's happening but letting it happen anyway, if you allow that to happen, they come out on the other side, and so do you, and it's so much better. It
is actually even, it's so much better with with my mom now than it was before. Our relationship is just much it's healthy. It's very healthy now.
Same. So healthy, so beautiful. Something that's never been before, and I'm so happy. It just keeps getting better. And I think we've segued into the last part, which is the practical survival tips. And the first one is a very interesting one. It's the 5-second rule. If you can do 5 seconds of just counting them, actually counting them, like how you were saying when you were reaching for the water bottle. And if you stop for 5 seconds and just count them and say, I'm not going to do this 1, I'm not going to do this 2, I'm not going to do this 3, and remind yourself why, even if you're counting them and saying, I'm not going to do this, my life was unmanageable, I'm not going to do this, I ended up in rehab. 5 seconds, the craving will pass.
It does, and it actually passes quite fast. I think, I use that. I had to learn that technique of, like, I tap 10 times on my wrist. And so I do that, especially social, like when I'm at events. Events are a big problem for me. Anyway, so I had to tap like 10 times, or when I'm going through something with my son, I've had to do that a lot. Maybe with regards to that also, for me, was the 24-hour rule. I made sure that unless something was absolutely urgent, and I had to learn to define urgent, right? I had to give it that 24-hour rule of I had to make sure I'm not making a decision unless it's, after 24 hours. So I decided to do that with work, with buying anything. If I see something and like it, if I still want to buy it in 24 hours, then I will. If I still need to make a decision or give someone that feedback, or all those little mini decisions that we make, then I literally had to give it 24 hours. You see, with us addicts, it's the instant gratification.
Yes.
We're very impulsive. That's why even relapse, sometimes we're like, I don't know what happened, because sometimes you're just you're sitting there, the waiter comes, oh, what would you like to drink? Oh, a Long Island. Just like that, because it's just that impulse. You want it, you get it immediately. So that's why all these techniques, like what you're saying, the 5-second rule, and me, the 24-hour one, but for bigger decisions.
And I like it tapping. I remember.
And now I find myself doing it without even thinking.
Yeah, I remember. I remember one of the therapists told me to do that, and I'd forgotten. So thank you for reminding me about that.
I still do.
Yeah, it's because I remember it being good, especially in my family sessions.
Yes,
I would be sitting there like, I don't know if they'll remember this because I know they'll watch, but I'd be sitting there and I'm talking and I'm just like literally tapping every part of my arm. And it really helps.
But I'll try to do it under the table so I don't look like a freak. Do it under the table so people don't see. But
and the other one is one of the easiest things for relapse to happen is when an addict is hungry, tired, or
hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yeah.
Yes. So imagine, those things might seem really simple, like we're treating ourselves like animals that can't control their impulses. No, we really have to do this. So with hungry, obviously when you're hungry, your impulses, your cravings are stronger and things like that. When you're angry, we don't have to explain that part. When you're angry, you make terrible decisions. When you're lonely, same thing. And then when you're tired, same thing. So to just make sure. And how do you do that? Through a routine. I think for me that would be the next tip. Like for me, routine was religion. Still is. Like I have to wake up at a certain time. The things that I do in the morning, I became part of the 5 a.m. club religiously, because then it sets the pace for the day. It just made sure that I just, still talking about routine, my eating routine, I had to eat at particular times, eat particular foods, because they're foods like, say, a lot of carbs now for me makes me crave certain things even more. I had to plan, I had to really plan my day so that I would even say plan the weekend, so Saturday doesn't find me just there with nothing planned. Then that's how those thoughts of, see my life, and then social media is the worst. Everyone is at an event somewhere, everyone is doing this, someone is on holiday, and you're like, now look at me, poor old Laura. So I'd have to make sure. Yes, I would even plan my boredom, either some series or just know I'm going to sleep, or I'm just going to be bored, and that's okay. But at least it wouldn't just take me by surprise. So routine. You get into this in rehab, but you don't have to. Not everyone ends up there, so it's good to know your routine is your just gospel truth. And we're not saying if you're in a routine and 1 week it's off, now what do you call it, the whip yourself and do penance. No. Give yourself grace and then get back onto the routine, because it's how you stay. It's how you keep moving But basically
forward.
To create a routine that works for you, right? You're sleeping, you're eating, physical activity. So for me, the things that I had to, I did a lovely episode on that, the things that I had to make sure, the facets of my life, spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, that's now the reading, the learning something new. What was the other? What have I left out? So there's spiritual, emotional, right? Mental,
and biological, which is listen to. Well, for me, it's biological because it's listen to your body. Like if you're not feeling well, listen to your body.
That's the emotional, like learning to regulate your emotions, right?
For me, it's as well as. If I'm not feeling so I for example, it's cold now, I'm prone to flu, but I'd be one of those people who first lets it get COVID before I treat it, because I'm a warrior, I can handle this. And it's like, no, your body is telling you you're getting sick, take some rest, or go to a doctor or like actually listen to your body.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by biology for me. Yeah.
Okay. So routine, I think quite a number of people have shared with me that I've become quite monk-like because of how strict I've been with my routine. But guys, I think now you understand that it's not just a nice thing for me to do. It's something that I have to do to stay on this path. I have to do it because unlike you, who are not addicts, for me, when I fall off, then it just puts me at such a risk because then it's so easy for me to get triggered. And when I get triggered, I could go down a very dangerous path.
Yeah.
So I have to do things. I have to learn to calm myself down so I'm not getting angry.
Yeah.
Learn to walk away, learn to surrender.
Yeah.
For the hunger part, like I was saying, have a proper eating routine.
Yeah.
I always have an apple in my bag. Maybe I'm somewhere and I
Yeah.
can't stop somewhere for lunch. Make sure I eat something.
Yeah.
Also what I'm eating.
Yeah.
The loneliness we've talked about. I always have a book. I always have something scheduled. And then the tired sleep. I have learned the importance of sleep.
Yeah.
My God, I know you struggle to sleep a lot.
Did and sometimes I still do. And for me, the tired is
Yes.
actually my biggest like trigger or emotional offset because I've been really lucky in therapy. Sometimes I go off, but mostly I've learned how to emotionally regulate, and I'm continuing to learn through therapy. But the tired, I really struggle with my sleep schedules on and off. It's bad. It's supposed to be part of your constant routine, but it's not intentional.
Yeah.
Sometimes my brain is just, it's overwhelmed during the day and it can't shut down fully, even with the medication I take. And then it accumulates. If I go 3 days like that, I start feeling the things that are, I just start feeling off. I start feeling like my brain isn't all together there. I start feeling everything is just at my fingertips. Like everything is, the smallest thing is making me mad. The smallest thing is making me sad. The smallest thing is making me want to binge eat. The smallest thing is making me want to isolate.
Yeah.
It becomes I'm not okay.
Yeah.
So I have to then...
And for us, we have to pay attention to that.
We have to pay attention, and I have to then figure out, do I need to go away for a weekend somewhere by myself and actually force my sleep schedule back to normal, or do I need to now sit with myself and think about what is it that's actually making my brain not shut down fully, which is not easy because sometimes you know, but you're ignoring it.
But that's how we have to constantly check in with ourselves, and just not let anything catch us off guard. So once again, we share this so you can understand what addiction is like, what it was like. We've talked a lot about what it was like for us in active addiction, and now we're talking about what it's like in recovery. And please do share with us the people who are in the same situation as us. Please do share your experiences or ask us anything in the DMs anywhere on Addiction Unfiltered. We are on all the platforms. And for the families out there or all the support groups of addicts, if you also have something to ask, we're actually going to have an episode with a family member, and we're going to have many of those so they can also share. Addiction is actually called a family disease, right? Because it affects our loved ones as much as it does us, like they're in this with us, so it's very important that we bring them into the conversation, and we can't wait to share more of that with you. I hope these conversations that we're having, at least with each other and sharing with you, are really helping to demystify this, right? I hope you're beginning to understand it better. And what does this do? Like we're saying, break the stigma, have more compassion, and just have more of these conversations. We have to normalize this so that it's just not as bad as it is now. I know we can't take it away, but if we can just do our little part. And this is us doing our little part. So
early recovery is not easy. It's messy, but it's also magical. It's also magical.
And everything, what do they say? The sun rises at some point. The sun will always rise. So it gets better. It gets better.
Thanks for joining us today. Like, share, and subscribe. Do come into the comment sections with any questions. We read your comments. We appreciate them. And see you on the next one.
See you guys.